Good evening, everyone. It's Friday night. I don't know about you, but I'm ready. Uh, we are Newark United Pentecostal Church, and my name is Meg. I want to extend a warm welcome to everybody tonight. Thank you for joining us. And to our first-time guests, we certainly appreciate you giving us your time tonight, and we hope you enjoy our broadcast. Friday Night with Friends is just our casual chatting it up with friends and family that we know, and just having fun talking to one another and sharing stories. There can be testimonies in there. There can be secrets. But, oh, well, we'll see. We'll see what I have my friend Fiona on with us tonight, and I'll introduce her in just a moment. But I did want to welcome everybody to find out more about us at newarkupc.info, where you can find out about small groups that we have. Right now, we're broadcasting on our digital campus 6 nights a week at 7 p.m. That's Tuesday through Sundays at 7 p.m. we broadcast, and Mondays we take off. But there's a lot more you can find out about us at newarkupc.info. You can submit prayer requests and share testimonies and praise God, in our best effort to provide a corporate experience for us all as we are gathering together on our digital format. But tonight, it's Friday night. I think a lot of us are still about a year later, still looking forward to a Friday night broadcast where we just have fun. And tonight I have brought on my dear friend, Fiona. She can wave at us. I see she's still muted for now, just so that I can get our intros here. But she's going to be sharing a little bit about herself and her life in just a moment here. But first, I want to give a formal introduction of Fiona. When you ask someone, at least in our culture, North American culture, tell me a little bit about yourself. We always go to what we do, and that's not a bad thing, but that's only a part of who we are. But Fiona is a licensed professional counselor in private practice in St. Louis, Missouri. And she's been working in this area of mental health in various capacities. I know when I met Fiona, she was a social worker. So she's worked in various capacities since 1995. She's been providing therapy services to children, teens, and families since 2015. And she's a registered play therapist, specializing in attachment disruption, trauma, and utilizing digital tools in play therapy. She's also currently under supervision to obtain ABCDEFG in certification HIJKLMNOP. There's a lot of letters there, so no, she could probably tell us more about that. But she is under supervision to continue in her field, gaining certifications. And as one of her dear friends, I feel like I only know just scratching the surface amount of information of what she's dived into professionally in play therapy. But before we get to that, I just wanted to say that I've known Fiona in my family. She's friends with my mom and my sister, and I met her back in 2005 is when I moved to St. Louis. We met through school, Urshan Graduate School of Theology. She had already graduated. I believe you were the graduate of the first graduating class, right, of the school. So she's been there since the very beginning of what we call UGST. And I went there in 2005 and met Fiona. She was an alumni already. And we just clicked as friends. You know how they say there's some people you feel like, have I really just met you? Like we feel like, and now it's been, 15 years of friendship. And she's become more of a sister friend as we have called each other in the past. And that just, kind of demonstrates the type of friendship we have. And my kids know her as Aunt Fifi. I said, Aunt Fifi's going to be on Friday Night with Friends tonight. And Kale goes, she's coming here? So Kale's my 3-year-old son. So he thought you were coming here, but I told him, well, in a sense, through the screen. So I could say so much more about Fiona. She's visited us out here, my family out here after we moved, and just been a really dear friend to me, and I appreciate her so much. So I'm going to enjoy having her on tonight, and I know you all will too. So Fiona, you come on, Fiona. Say hi.
Hello.
Hello. Look, I even brought my coffee. She gave me this mug, and I brought some cheers through the screen. There you go.
Yep. It's a
We're both
Starbucks.
coffee. Yeah, that's all right. We're both coffee drinkers. We enjoy that. So we often get on FaceTime and get a cup of coffee and chat. But tonight I asked Fiona to come on because in about the year long that we've had Friday Night with Friends, we've had a handful of counselors on. And Fiona is in that field now. That's where she's landed in the last few years or so. But Fiona's, counseling is a vast field, lots of emphases. Yeah.
I think
Yeah, a lot of different specialties people can have. And Fiona is specialized in something called play therapy. In a sense, it is what it sounds like, but it's also like, what do you mean by play therapy? And I just thought it would be kind of fun and really interesting to hear more about play therapy, and tell us about a kind of define it for us, maybe, Fiona, and then maybe tell us kind of in general what it looks like to go to a therapist that in which your therapy is play. So I'm going to hand the mic over to Fiona for now, and we'll just have fun hearing about this special field of counseling.
so I've been really excited to be here. Like, yes, so way excited. And so I have to say, one of the things that that I appreciate about Meg and my friendship with her is that it and I had the thoughts in my brains, and then then I lost my brains. But just being able to be in without judgment, and just being able to be a friend. So but play therapy, so I guess, so let me tell a little bit about how I got into play therapy, because it was kind of like social work when I was in college. I just kind of fell into it. But so when I got my license in when I became fully licensed in 2017, I switched from clinical case management to therapy, and I was working with kids, like all kids. And I remember telling my director, yeah, so let me work with 5 to 11 and then 25 and up, because I just wanted to like miss that whole, teenage. I love them now. I love them now. But I was like, what am I going to do with teenagers? But I remember, so I was sitting in my office, and I had just started providing therapy, and I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. So I guess I'll just get a deck of Uno cards and we'll play Uno. And so, and just play games. And I'm like, okay, I don't really know what I'm doing, but this feels like it should be something that I should be doing. And so I found a play therapy certificate program, and it just felt like my therapy home. Like, this is what it's all about. And it kept me from feeling like I was drowning, but it also gave me a passion. And so, as time went on, I was like, this is so way cool. And so play therapy is basically taking toys And the toys are kids' words because the language of kids is play.
Mm.
And I tell people often that, you know, we have like a 3, 4, and 5-year-old, and we're like, tell me what's wrong. What's wrong? Why are you crying? What's wrong? They don't know. Most likely they don't know. But you give them toys and they're more likely to play it out. And so you can get so much information from, you know, just from how they're, you know, how they're playing. And relationships heal relationships. And so the play, oops, I'm sorry guys.
That's okay.
Relationships heal relationships. And so the play is the therapy. A lot of times you might do some talking and kind of, you know, digging into what's going on, but the play is a therapy. So yeah, so I've become really passionate about it. And then and so I spent from 2017, so 3 years, 2017 to 2020, doing traditional play therapy, what we now call traditional play therapy, because I was one of those play therapists that I am not doing play therapy by telehealth. Like I was, you know, I would read and I would hear people talking about doing play therapy by telehealth. I'm like, what? Are they crazy? You can't
And
do.
telehealth, just in case people aren't familiar, what is telehealth?
Okay, so telehealth is basically, so if we were in a therapy session right now, it's synchronous communication, either by video or phone. But it's usually by video.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, you won't ever see me doing a play therapy session on video. Not gonna happen. Well, then COVID-19 hit.
Mm-mm.
And I'm like, what am I gonna do? I don't know what I'm doing. So, you know, so then, you know, it's kind of like going back 3 years and feeling like I was drowning, you know. So what did I do? I just did what I knew to do, you know, and just kept trying to do, you know, the traditional stuff that I was doing, which works and is good, but I needed something else because I'm gonna be honest, I was getting burnt out because I was like, I was, you know, it was almost, it felt like I was shifting my focus. And so it was a different modality. And so I was like, what am I gonna do? I feel like I'm drowning. And so there's lots of things on play therapy that you can do. One of them is a sand tray therapy. And I use it from, I think my youngest is 4 all the way up to adults.
And sand tray is like, you mean in a session, a client is using like their fingers or an instrument in sand, like a little sand box?
So yeah, so you have, and I don't have a picture of my sand tray, but the traditional sand tray, you have like a box of, you have a
Table.
box of sand,
Mm-hmm.
and you have symbols or miniatures, or different people call them different things, but you can have people like create their world. They can make pictures to represent what's going on. And so it very much gets into the subconscious, because it gives you the words that you might not even have the words for. And things can come out that you might not even have the words for, and that you don't even realize what's going on, right?
Okay, let me ask a quick question. So I'm thinking about the types of tools that a play therapist has.
Okay.
You're describing things that um like almost like kind of like toys. You know, a play therapist uses these tools. So I know you said some of your clients are younger, and we associate playing with younger, but would you use the same tools in a play therapy session for adults, for an adult session?
Depend. Yeah, I mean, depending, sometimes you would, depending on what's going on now. So
Or is play therapy for adults?
yeah, I use, so Sandtray is a part of play, is a part of play therapy. So Sandtray, I can see where, so I have a dollhouse in my office. I can see where a dollhouse can be used for adults. Singing tray can be used for adults. I also have toy guns and toy shields and toy swords and all kinds of stuff. And I have like lots of bouncy toys because my younger kids like the sensory stuff. So for the kids that have a lot of energy and aggression, fun times. So yeah, so I got sidetracked. I think I lost.
Okay. Well, I had asked about, you were describing the sand tray
Okay.
and just the different tools that you use in play therapy, because I was asking if adults also use the same tools as you would for kids in order to kind of move
Yeah.
through a therapy session. But kind of traveling back to how you became, are you getting some tools to show us?
I am.
I knew it. She's gonna get, I thought, oh, I wonder if she could show us some.
I didn't even think about it before. Okay. So travel, okay, so meet Princess Fiona.
Oh, of course.
Yes, Princess Fiona. She has helped me so much. And I also have a friend, Sam, that has experienced every single emotion and every single thing that every kid has ever experienced. So yeah.
That's so sweet. I want to ask some questions about that, but I'm going to wait for our audience to give some questions. I don't want to take some of the ones that might pop up, but if it doesn't come up, then I'll ask later.
Okay.
Oh, I love that. It felt like children's church right there.
Right.
Remember the puppet ministry?
I was in puppet ministry.
Uh-huh. Bring back the puppet ministry.
That was before I ever became a play therapist.
That's awesome. So I guess also when thinking about what play therapy, because for our audience, if this is kind of a new, like, what do you mean play therapy? Or for parents, or even for adults that you might encounter, and this is the first time hearing of this kind of therapy, what kinds of things do you find are important to help inform people about what you do and why?
So I have this conversation a lot, and because, and I've had people say, well, it's just play. It's more than that. It's not just play. It's taking knowledge and experience and helping somebody walk through their journey to bring healing. And I've had people say, I think we should talk more, which, and because sometimes what I find a lot is that kids aren't able to talk yet. I mean, they can talk, but like they're kind of stuck in their emotion brain versus their logic brain. And so when they're dysregulated, or what we would call maybe a tantrum or a meltdown, they're stuck in their emotion brain and they can't think logically. And so for us to say, tell me why you're crying, what's going on, or if you've had someone who's experienced trauma, they're going to be stuck in that emotion brain for a while. And so you've got to regulate them and teach them the words before they can actually have the words and know the words. And so that's what I was really kind of struggling with when COVID hit, because it felt like a lot of the tools that I had, I didn't have access to, because I wasn't going to I wasn't going to my office. I wasn't, so moving everything from my office to my home office was like a whole transition in itself.
I bet.
What do I take? What do I leave? That sort of thing. But so in the process of thinking, I'm not going to be able to do St. Trey with people. What am I going to do? Because St. Trey is I love St. Trey. It's probably my favorite, because I do it for myself too. And so it's very relaxing. And I've actually done St. Trey in my own therapy sessions too. So I really believe in it. And I was like, what am I going to do? And I was in a therapist group, and I came across the virtual St. Trey app that was co-created by Dr. Jessica Stone and her husband Chris. And it was like the most transformational thing. So I can say that finding play therapy in general was a profession changer and a life changer. But finding the virtual St. Trey app is like another milestone, because not only did it open my eyes to being able to do St. Trey, it opened my eyes to a whole nother modality that, if you would have asked me 2 or 3 years ago, you ask people that know me, Fiona doesn't play video games, and using digital tools. Cause I'm like, no, we just need the traditional. But in reality, we need all of it, because we're living in a digital world, and we make connections with people. So I met Dr. Jessica Stone, and then, and Dr. Rachel Altvader has also done a lot of work in using digital tools in therapy, and Dr. Stone has written like 3 or 4 books, I think. I know 2 digital tools, one integrating video games, or integrating technology into session, and then digital play therapy book. So that just kind of opened the door. You're like, oh, you can make a connection, with people digitally. It is possible, because so
Let me just stop to connect the dots. So before COVID, you're calling traditional play therapy was, in person with physical tools like a sand tray, puppets, balls, things like that. When COVID hit, obviously you had to move to sessions that were through the computer, or telehealth is what I know a lot of medical in counseling services. So, a lot of people used it because of COVID, that everyone went to a digital format. And so the Dr. Jessica and Dr. Rachel had digital play therapy tools, provided for play therapists, because, obviously you weren't with people in session. So how were you doing? They changed how you did therapy.
So Dr. Stone has been talking about using digital tools and digital play therapy. So the term digital play therapy is actually a term that in a modality that she came up with, and has really trailblazed the whole modality of using digital tools, from anywhere from apps to tabletop board games to puppets digitally. And
so you've really relied on this for your counseling sessions this whole past year.
Right.
Yeah.
Especially in the beginning, because it was like, oh my goodness, what do I do? And through this, and not only was I given tools, I was also given relationships, because I've built relationships with both of them. And then even having a small group of I told them that I wasn't going to call them out by name. So if they're going to watch, they are officially called out right now. But we have a small group that we play video games together. Mm-hmm. and it's become more than just playing. We've actually been a support for each other during COVID, you know, and I've not met any of them in person. I've met them by Zoom, but I've never met them in person, but there's still that connection there. And you know, we're still a part of each other's daily life, and we just met. Well, we met, you know, probably in May or June of 2020. So it hasn't even been a year yet.
Look at that.
Right.
Cool.
Yeah. And so, yeah.
I was going to ask you, I know, is your background part of the game?
Okay, so no, the background is not part of the game. The background is actually the virtual Santray app.
Oh, that's it. Okay.
And so this is something that I created on the app. So this was like my self-care of like, okay, I need some calm, so let me create that calm. And because I love water, I love the beach, I love lighthouses, and I love coffee. So, you know, so it's all.
So that's what the virtual Santray app does, is you create scenes? Is it all scenes? Can you do other things on there? Can you create like?
So do we have time for me to screen share?
People? Yeah, let's just see it. Let's just try it. Why not?
Okay. Give me just a second.
So this is one of the tools you use in therapy with your clients.
Yes. And I use this from kids to adults. Mm-hmm. And this is the tool that Dr. Jessica Stone and her husband Chris created.
Wow.
So I lovingly call them both geniuses.
Well, timing couldn't have been better for this type of thing to become available for, you know, therapists through a screen with clients. I mean, it's pretty amazing.
And the amazing thing about it is that they actually created it in 2011 for the tsunami in Japan. And so then therapists in Japan could do Santray, and then it went public in 2015, and then here we are 2020 needing it, you know.
Yeah, when we can't meet in person.
Yeah, it was very visionary, very visionary.
Yeah, usually around, it's 7:28 right now, my computer, usually around 7:30, we go ahead and start taking questions from our audience tonight. So that's fine. I mean, I'm sure people would love to see it in action, and then we'll move to questions
I
after
will
that.
move really quickly.
Oh, that's fine. It's cool. Fiona's well-versed with technology here.
So this is the actual, so this is the actual tray. And so you can dig down 3 levels, and then you have a liquid level. You can build up. You can paint different things. Let's see. You can choose different things.
Oh, wow, you can create your own little world. And this helps kids or adults you know, kind of talk, or kind of whatever it brings up for a client to talk kind of openly and in a, you know, in a safety. Yeah.
Yep. And
That
you
is
can,
cool.
yeah, and you can change the background and to change the mood, and yeah,
Do
it's
they have control over, or are you putting it together?
so there is so there they with COVID they created a remote feature.
Oh,
So so the client can connect remotely if they have like an iPad or an iPhone, and so they have complete control over it, and then I can see what they're doing on the screen on my iPad. And
that's
you can connect
cool.
up to 8 people
Oh,
for
wow.
groups.
Yeah,
So
I was going to say you can do group therapy. I think it really helped to see an example of what you meant by virtual sound tray. Because yeah, it's kind of like wrapping our minds around, well, what does she mean? But that's awesome. That really helped to see the visual. Erica, are we doing? Oh,
and we can still use puppets and use virtual saint tray. It can be a both and not an either or.
yes, of course. Yay. More tools in the tool belt that can't hurt.
Yeah.
Um,
And
Erica, are
it's
we good for questions or do we want, how are we doing?
I've got a couple already.
Okay.
So let me give me a second. Let me open this wider. What do you look for in terms of your client's successful progress in play therapy? How is a parent or guardian involved?
so I'll start with the first one. It really starts with the presenting concern or the presenting issue, and looking for changes in the themes of play. Like if I have somebody who's coming in where they're really dysregulated, whether it's aggression or just high energy, and this is a very simplified version of what goes on, but just moving from aggression to calm would be one example of a shift and progress. And how do I involve the parents or guardian. I do primarily family therapy, especially with the younger kids. So we get to have family play therapy.
Oh,
Yeah. So it's been really powerful to be able to see families learn how to play together and learn how to interact together. Both traditionally,
Mhm.
both traditionally and digitally. Because you can have the same dynamics.
Have you seen a parent? Because I know, again, like play, we automatically just think of kids, like play, that's okay for kids. But so have you seen, I can see parents being fine with their child in play therapy, but have you seen a parent or parents, when you involve them, be kind of resistant to play therapy, but then watching them kind of accept it, because of maybe the results they're seeing either in the child or as a unit?
So I've seen less of that with the traditional play, because traditional play we're used to playing board games, we're used to doing all these things. And um and and even I wouldn't say that I've really had a lot of kickback, even with using digital tools, because that's where we are. Because I really try to front load that all the whole conversation of kind of what, you know and I use the example. So you can't take the kids out of the bubble and say, okay, fix the kids, and then put them back in the bubble and expect things to be any different, because the dynamics in the system haven't changed. So I really start, especially with the younger kids, I start from the very beginning, usually with family sessions. So that kind of curtails that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. In what kinds of situations would a young child be referred to you for play therapy?
I work a lot. I work with a lot of adoption and trauma. anxiety, depression, pretty much I I see a whole spectrum of things. I work a lot with autistic kids and some autistic adults as well. And play therapy has been great for kids with autism.
Are most of your sessions one-on-one, or are they group sessions?
It really depends on the situation. I try to do as much family sessions as possible because that's where I found the most success. And and there might be times where I have to do individual, and then but most of my caregivers and most of my parents know from the very beginning that even if we're working individually right now, because I work from an attachment based focus, and so my caregivers and my parents know that from the beginning that we're probably going to be moving towards family therapy at some point, because if I'm not if I'm not teaching the parents the skills and help and working to help repair the relationship, then they'll be coming back, which is fine, if you want to come back, but I think it's important to give people as many tools as they can.
Okay, now I have another question to just go off what you just said. Can you explain what attachment-based focus is?
So it's a focus on the relationship, and it doesn't, and from my perspective, every relationship has what we call a rupture, or a better word that people might be more familiar with is conflict. And so when there's that conflict, you focus on the relationship. I talk a lot about, especially with, I talk a lot about co-regulation, because if, a lot of times what I see happen is parents, where kids are dysregulated, and so in an attempt to calm them down, the parent or the caregiver becomes dysregulated. So you have a kid that's up here, and then the parent comes up here, and then the kid goes up here, and then the kids go down here.
It sounded like my morning.
Mine too sometimes, right? So then everybody's escalated, and the caregiver is what I call like a thermometer instead of a thermostat. And so that attachment approach focuses more on becoming the thermostat and becoming that co-regulation and that co-regulator.
Okay, so another question is, what is the most common issues referred to you, and what is most successful to remediate?
So I see a lot of adoption. I see a lot of trauma. I see a lot of anxiety. In the recent past, I've worked a lot with high conflict divorce. I try to stay out of that. But
I was going to ask Fiona, because that was similar to another question we just had, and I thought of something to ask and then it left me, but now I remember again. The counselors that we've had on in previous broadcasts, one of the common questions has been, have you seen an increase in cases, and, just the impact of COVID on mental health in general, and then the influx of clients for counselors. But you mentioned anxiety, depression, and since you work, so I know you don't work solely with children, but since that is a big portion of your clients, with things like virtual school and not being in school and just the whole upset of COVID, has there even been an influx for you of children patients for anxiety, depression, because I mean, I don't know if we can directly link things, but because of COVID.
Yeah, and it's and I've seen a progression, because it seemed for my caseload, the families that were a little bit more resilient in the beginning were really thriving. But then as time went on, that resilience kind of decreased. And yeah, and two, what I've seen now, what I've seen, at least in my area, is that a good number of the therapists are actually leaving the field because of their own burnout, and either leaving the field or not taking as many clients, and so decreasing their caseload. They've got to go somewhere, because whether there's been an increase in people seeking therapy, I don't know. But I know my caseload is full all the time. So, and so I think, I think it kind of gets tricky, right? Because we want to be positive, and we want to and we want to be always positive, and being always positive isn't really
Helpful.
help, right? Like that toxic positivity, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's important for us to recognize that people are struggling,
Mm-hmm.
and even therapists are struggling. I'm not gonna lie, there's times, especially the first 3 months, I barely left my house.
Yeah.
I was struggling, and so I had to go back to the office. Even if I was still only doing telehealth, I had to go back to the office for my own mental health.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, that's real place people are in.
Okay, we've got a couple more questions. Do you do any trauma training to groups, for example, like church or educators?
I do. So right now I'm doing trainings on using digital tools in therapy. I'm happy to tailor trainings for churches and educators, because I think it's important. One of the things that I've found is in schools is that they try to be trauma informed, but they weren't trained to be therapists. They were trained to be teachers, and so I have seen a lot of need for that. So yeah, I do.
Okay, then what is the risk of misreading something that is happening through play, is there any risks?
There's risk in misinterpreting words. So I would say, one of the things is that, you just kind of watch it and see if it's a theme. And I mean, and you can't, and when I say play, I'm not saying don't use words at all, because I mean, we have to use words sometimes, but, and, kind of figuring out like, what it means. And especially with sand tray, because I think it's so easy to misinterpret that. It means what the client says it means. If they say it doesn't mean anything, then it doesn't mean anything. But and also still looking for things and assessing for safety.
Okay, and this question is kind of pertaining to split families. So if there's pertaining to divorce. So if there's a family that has two separate structures, what's the best way to help the child or children understand the difference between the different environments, like going from dad's house or to mom's house? Do you have anything you would recommend?
I think the important thing is that there's at least some semblance of sameness, if that makes sense, because and really, and this isn't always possible, but really trying to work together in the best interest of the child to make sure that that there's stability. And so that's where, in those situations, that's where like maybe co-parenting therapy would help. And if I'm the one doing the co-parenting therapy, then I would meet with both of them together to figure out what common ground we could have and kind of go from there, because parents are going to parent differently. We just don't want it to be harmful for the kids.
If that isn't possible, do you think it'll be hard for a child or children to adapt to the different structures from different households if there isn't a common ground?
I think it makes things more challenging, because divorce is already challenging. But yeah, I would say I think it does definitely make it more challenging. And figure and making sure, because we don't have control over other people, right? We only have control over what we do and what we say. But making sure, that that your attachment and your relationship with the kids is healthy. That co-regulation, that healthy relationship is going to go a long way to help the child.
Okay. What is your favorite age to help with therapy, or do you have one?
I do. I like the little kids. I would say probably 5 to 11, but I do have some teens that I really like working with too. So I let somebody else work with the parents as far as like their own individual therapy.
So are you using play to access what's going on, or teach the use of play in itself as a tool for coping, or both?
Both. Yeah.
Okay. Right now, I don't have any other questions so far.
Well, Fiona, was there anything else you wanted to include as far as informing us about, the type of, what play therapy is? Is there anything that you feel you had to leave out because we moved to questions? I'm gonna ask you first.
No.
Actually, I have a question.
You know what I will say? So this wasn't brought up, but with using digital tools, it's a fine balance, because I was thinking about, balance and how, and somebody had asked about, kickback, I guess, about using play therapy. I think the common question, and I actually get more kickback from other therapists about, so much screen time, so much this, so much, so much that. And I think it's important to have a balance and not to cancel it out just because it's not something that we're used to or that we're familiar with. Because the kids' languages play, and that's part of going into the kids, the child's world, saying, hey, I'm interested in what you're interested in. And so so I may not get it, I may not know how to play the game, but kids love to teach you how to play.
Oh yeah.
So
I actually have a question. It's a personal question about,
okay.
I'm gonna totally put one of my children on blast, but I'm not going to say the name. So one of my kids, when they get frustrated or frustrated at themselves, they literally shut down and just shut down, run away, and literally puts themselves in a corner and shuts down. And when I've tried to ask them questions to get, try to figure out what's going on, they just literally don't say anything. I don't know if that's just part of our family, but
they've probably what I call flipped their lid. So they're, even though it's and it's easier to recognize flipping our lid when it's outward, right? When, yelling, screaming, and tantrum and meltdown. But when kids internalize it, they've also flipped their lid, and they're also dysregulated. It's just internalized. And so in that moment, I wouldn't talk to them. And so that I can't really give specific advice, but in general, if they're dysregulated like that, I would just kind of let it go and just let them know that you're there. And it's that co-regulation piece, right? It's that, and then let them get out of their emotion brain and then talk about it.
Okay. And then another question came up. Is it difficult to communicate regarding your clients with other healthcare professionals who do not have a counseling or psych background?
No. So I actually have I work with like a lot of occupational therapists, a lot of pediatricians and stuff. And because I spent several years working in community mental health, so it was very much of a team approach. And so I think that really helped me to be able to more easily communicate with other professionals.
And right now I have nothing else.
That's fine. I wanted to just we're coming up to the top of the hour anyway, coming up to 8:00 East Coast time. And one thing, Fiona, I was thinking about when we started talking about what you would come on and speak to us about. Fiona she's a lifelong learner, and there are so many things we could have tapped into tonight from Fiona. She's just like a wealth of, wisdom and knowledge. And, so I thought about what to ask you to come on and speak to us about. And I felt like, as I've talked to you in this past year, you talked about this transition from what you're calling traditional therapy tools, in-person things that we can touch and watch, and, it going through from that to through screen therapy through a screen, disconnected from one another as far as being in person and physically, and learning. I mean, I remember us talking about like, how are you going to do your type of therapy through a screen? Are you going to lose your clients? We talked about these things. What's going to happen to your career field? There were big questions during COVID, but these digital tools obviously have become, lifesavers in the way that you practice, your therapy with your clients, and opened up a whole door, whole world of tools to use. I know when we were talking this week about this topic, we talked about how, okay, telehealth and digital tools, this play therapy, is it going to disappear after COVID?
A lot of people, including myself, are going hybrid.
Yeah.
And that's the thing too, about the digital tools, is that they're helpful for telehealth, and they can be used in person. I use the virtual Santa app in person.
Oh, that's true. Yep.
I do have a few people that I see in person, but the video games can be played in person. The apps can be played in person. And so none of it is going away. None of it's going away. You know, and there's a lot of talk about the hybrid model, you know, and what that looks like.
I think that that's just neat to hear about, because in brief, and Erica said she has one more question, so I'll let her round us out here. But, you know, in brief, this is what was produced basically out of COVID, the COVID environment for our church, Newark UPC, in using a digital platform for our services for almost a year now.
Yeah.
We have not gone back to in-person services at all. Many churches have, and we have decided to just take this digital platform, you know, by the reins and run with it. And in the same way that the counseling world is not planning on doing away with digital tools, Newark UPC is not doing away with our digital platform. How it's used, what comes through it, those things will shift, and the purpose might change, but it's here to stay. And so it's neat to hear of these other digital tools and other, you know, disciplines and other contexts being kind of revealed and, you know, and used, and seeing a use for them ongoing. So it's not, you know, we talked about how it's not a substitute. This isn't a substitute. You know,
Yeah.
these are tools that are going to be helpful moving forward.
Yeah,
Erica, go ahead.
It's definitely not an either or. It's a both and, you know.
Right.
Because I've had,
yeah.
you know, people be really concerned. Oh, you know, they, you know, they just focus too much on, you know, digital tools. And when they come into my office, I have it sitting out there. They don't touch it. You know.
Yeah. Well, that's neat. That's neat to kind of hear the plans for moving past COVID.
Yeah.
But Erica, go ahead and round us out.
Okay, so there's two actually, but I can combine them. Did you say the youngest age of children that you work with is like 4? Is it the youngest you've done?
I have seen as young as 3. Yeah.
Okay, and then the final question. Do you have any stories to tell about Dr. Beardsley?
Oh boy. So yeah, he was my instructor for church history. And
You have him for just church history? Is that all you took from him?
Yeah, that was all.
that was enough?
Yeah.
Okay, now we're beating up. Go ahead, tell your story.
Love you, Dr. Beardsley. So yeah, so he was my church history instructor, and so yeah, we had a lot of lively conversations about dating in church history and his perspective on dating. And then and his work, y'all, was no joke.
Yeah, our church is familiar with the stories of the assignments that he had assigned.
I will say I ended up with an A in the class, I think.
Oh, that's great. Better than me. I got a B+.
Maybe even a B, but yeah, it was no joke.
Oh, that's so great. That's so great. Well, we're just a couple minutes away, and I think that's probably a laugh is a good thing to end on. But I just want to thank you, Fiona, for coming on and sharing this kind of unique area, and especially the things that came out of COVID-19 for your field, and how it's just neat to hear about you know, things we're not super familiar with. You know, this is kind of a new area that I hadn't heard of, and it's been really interesting learning about that, you know, in our chats and when we chat, you know, from time to time. And appreciate everybody coming on the broadcast this evening. I hope you enjoyed our broadcast tonight. And just as a reminder, we do meet 7 p.m. Right here, 6 nights a week, Tuesday through Sunday. And I thank everybody for their contributions tonight. Thank you, Erica, for feeding us our questions. Hope everyone has a happy and safe weekend, and we'll see you tomorrow night.